Hello everyone, I'm Sir Romel Antonio, your General Mathematics teacher. Welcome to quarter 2, week 1 of our discussion. If there's something that we Filipinos should learn about these trying times that our country is experiencing the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that is we should learn how to earn and invest. We should learn to deposit money so that it could earn interest. So this week, we will be discussing simple and compound interest. Our objective is for you to be able to illustrate simple and compound interest as well as to distinguish the difference between the two. Let's take note that interest is an amount paid for borrowing money. So it could be that you will be paid for investing your money or the bank will get paid by giving loans. Simple interest is an interest that is computed based on the principal amount. It remains constant throughout the term. Let's have this example. You put 5,000 pesos in the bank. The bank pays 4% interest a year. And this is credited to your account, of course. At the end of a fixed term of 10 years, you'll have 7,000 pesos. On simple interest, you should be able to determine the following. The first one is the interest. As what was mentioned earlier, it is amount that is paid for the money being borrowed. So after you put or deposit your money, your 5,000 peso in the bank, it earned 2,000 pesos after 5 years. After 10 years, that's why you got 7,000 pesos. So the interest there is 2,000 pesos. The initial investment, P, or the principal amount is the initial money or the initial investment. So that is 5,000 pesos. The interest rate is usually written in percent form. That shows the increase of interest. While the time is the duration on which your money will be deposited or invested. And the total acquired amount is the sum of the principal investment or principal amount together with the interest earned by your money. So that is 7,000 pesos. Usually, aside from acquired amount or total amount, is also called as maturity value or future value F. For simple interest, you will be dealing with two formulas. That is, interest is equal to the product of the principal amount, rate, and time. And to identify or to obtain the total acquired amount or the future value, you have to sum up the principal amount and the computed interest. If it happens that you are asked to identify the acquired amount or the future value, you can use the formula A is equal to P times the quantity of 1 plus R times. This is a derived formula from the two given above mentioned formulas. Let's have our example. Natasha invests 250,000 pesos in a building society account. At the end of each year, her account is credited 2% interest. How much interest had her 250,000 earned in 15 years? So for this problem, you are asked to identify how much is the interest or the amount of interest. So the formula to be used for this is I is equal to PRT. So our principal amount is the invested money, 250,000 pesos. Well, the rate is 2% and the time it will be invested would be 15 years. So you have to properly substitute the formula. And here I'm gonna show you how it is being computed using a scientific calculator. So later on, this will be very helpful. So I am using the Hyper Scientific Calculator downloadable through Play Store. So there you are. You see how it is being placed in the scientific calculator there. So you'll be having 75,000 pesos as the interest of the money deposited for 15 years. Let's have another example. Raymond bought a car for 40,000 pesos. He took 20,000 peso loan from a bank at an annual interest rate of 1.6% for a 3-year period. What is the total amount that he would have to pay the bank at the end of 3 years? So the question for this problem is the total amount or the future value. Therefore, we can use the derived formula of interest and acquired money. A is equal to P times the quantity of 1 plus RT. So our principal amount is not the 40,000 peso because that's the amount how much Raymond bought the car. But this is the principal amount of loan. That's 20,000 peso. Be careful on the distractors in the word problem. The rate will be 1.6% and the time will be 3-year period. So substituting it on the formula and then using again scientific calculator. So you just have to simply type in there 20,000 peso parentheses. Observe that in a scientific calculator, we are only using parentheses rather than bracket. But then again, it has the same use. So you have to be careful which has to be solved first so that you know where to put the parentheses. Don't forget also the pairing of the parentheses, the open and close, so that you'll be able to identify the grouping. So the answer for this is 20,960 pesos. So after 3 years, he has to pay an additional of 960 pesos, coming up with 20,960 pesos after 3 years. Not bad for a loan. It will take a time of 3 years. Sarah deposits 4,000 peso at a bank with an interest rate of 4.5%. How much will she earn in her account at the end of 5 years? The question here is still how much will she earn? No? You have to be vigilant with the question. How much will she earn? So you are asked to identify the total amount or the future value. So we're still going to use the same formula. So our principal amount will be 4,000 pesos. Our rate will be 4.5% in decimal 0.045 and it's been deposited for 5 years. So using the formula, the calculator, I hope after this discussion you'll be familiarized with the use of calculator. And I'm advising everyone to be using the calculator that you are comfortable with. So this is the calculator I've been using for years. So the answer for this problem will be 4,900 pesos. So that's how much it will be after 5 years. So it earned 900 pesos. There. So now we're done with the simple interest. Later, you will observe the difference. So for the compound interest, it is an interest computed on the principal and on the accumulated past interest. How does it differ with the simple interest? It's that in the simple interest, what you have to compute for interest is only the principal amount. For the second year, still the principal amount. On the third year, and so on. While on the compound interest, you have to compute for the principal as well as the accumulated past interest because it is considered being used by the banks or by you when you had your loan. Let's have a clear example. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, Ms. Dada, a female resident of Barangay May Pagkakaisa, somewhere in Quezon Province, thinks of a business that can provide for her needs as well as the need of her neighbors, so she can be of help even in the trying time. Since she doesn't have money on hand, she decided to borrow from a bank as a start-up capital of 50,000 pesos at 7% interest rate payable within 5 years. If there is possibly two banks that will offer her, no, let's take for example, the first bank is offering simple interest while the other bank is offering compound interest. You observe that on simple interest, the principal amount is constant on the first up to 5 year. That's 50,000 pesos. Well, on the compound interest, you observe, no, you can see that the 50,000 peso on the first year became 53,500 on the second year. How come? So the additional 3,500 is added to this second year, it is obtained from the interest on the first year. So imagine that if your money in a bank or the money loaned from the first year and it increased with interest, so you're gonna put it in there. You're gonna put it on the principal amount on the second year. Why? Because that could be used again. That the depositor at the bank account will use the money that's the interest money that earned from that money being deposited. And aside from that, the second difference is that on simple interest, you will earn a little interest. Just like for this, you just earn 17,500. While on the compound interest, it earns almost 20,000. Almost 20,000. 30. Exactly 20,705.39 pesos. So why? It's because that the principal amount here is increasing, unlike the simple interest. It's constantly 50,000 pesos. So this distinguishes, or this difference between simple and compound interest will help us decide which bank to loan and which bank to deposit. Of course, if you're going to take a loan, you have to go to the bank that will give you shorter interest because you are having a loan. So you go to simple interest. But if you are investing, because the money will be yours, so you have to earn more. That's why you go to compound interest when you are investing or making a deposit. So here's the first formula that you can use to find the future amount in a compound interest. So observe that there is a new variable included in the formula, which is the n, which is the number of times interest is compounded per unit. So let's say, for example, you are asked to pay the interest rate, or the interest is compounded annually. So it means it will only happen once a year. Well, if it's semi-annually, it happens every 6 months. So therefore, you have to pay for it, or you have to receive the compounded interest twice a year. So the n is equal to 2. For quarterly, it's 4 times a year. For bi-monthly, it's 6 times a year. And for monthly, it's 12 times a year. You put 5,000 pesos in the bank, and the bank pays 4% compounded interest every quarter of the year. And this is credited to your account. At the end of a fixed term of 10 years, you'll have 7,444 pesos and 32 centavos. So in a compound interest, because there's an additional variable to consider, let's try to analyze again. So the interest in this word problem is the money earned. So from 5,000, it became 7,444.32. Therefore, the interest is 2,444 peso and 32 centavos. The initial investment will be 55,000 pesos. The interest rate will be 4%. The time it will be deposited will be 10 years. The n times the interest is compounded per year will be quarterly, it's mentioned in the problem, so n is equal to 4. And the total acquired amount will be 7,444 peso and 32 centavos. Let's make sense by using it in a word problem. You deposit 250,000 pesos in a high earning account, paying 9% compounded interest semi-annually, and leave it for 3 years. What will be the balance on the account at the end of that time? So the question is focusing on how much will be the balance, or how much will be the future value of the money. So we will use the formula mentioned earlier. Our principal amount will be 250,000 pesos. Our rate will be 9%. And since it is compounded quarterly, semi-annually, that will be our n equals 2. And then it will be deposited for 3 years. So substituting the formula and using the scientific calculator, you will see that the scientific calculator will be more helpful in a more complicated solution just like this one. So you just have to be very, very extra careful with the groupings of solution. So observe that I group the quotient of 0.09 and 2, and then group it again to have the exponent of 2 times 3. For the sake of showing you the way it is being input on the calculator, I am grouping 2 and 3. But anyway, you can input 6 right away because you can right away solve 2 times 3. No. Yeah. So you can simplify it if we can and if it's possible. So the answer will be 325,565 peso and 3 centavos. So after the end of 3 years, yung deposited money of 250,000 pesos will become 325,000 pesos, 325,565 peso and 3 centavos. So it almost earned. We have to just to subtract to get the interest, right? Okay. So the context itself. Let's have this example, another example. Jasmine borrowed money from a bank at a rate of 1.89% compounded semi-annually. If the amount she borrowed is 13,000 pesos, how much interest will she need to pay at the end of 6 years? So we will be using the formula of future value, and then after finding the future value, we have to subtract there the principal amount so that we will be able to identify how much interest she earned. Now, our principal amount will be 13,000 pesos, the amount borrowed. And then the rate of interest will be 1.89 in decimal, it's 0.089, 189. And then it's semi-annually, that's why I divide by 2. So the time year, 6 years will also be multiplied to 2. That's why it's 2 times 6. To properly input in the calculator, I right away substituted this formula, this solution to this and subtract the p. So I yield this one. This is the a, the future value, and then the minus p or the minus the principal amount. I can proceed with computing it directly on the calculator. There. You have to practice since there are answers, some of the solutions are missing, so you can practice using calculator. You can type there 12, but for the sake of putting the solution or proper use of calculator, so I indicated 2 times 6. And then after that, I'm going to try to group the whole future value because I need to subtract it with 13,000 or subtract it by 13,000. You may use the cursor there beside the menu and then minus 13,000 pesos. There. So we will obtain 1,553 peso and 29 centavo. So you have to round it off. That's the amount of interest. Some problem requires you to find the rate of interest. So we're gonna use this formula. So if I were you, I'm gonna jot down the formula on a note, on a notepad, note card, so that I will be guided all the time when I face a word problem on interest. So let's take this example. Mrs. Jefferson purchased an antique statue for 4,500 pesos. 10 years later, she sold this statue for 7,500 pesos. If the statue is viewed as an investment, what annual rate did she earn? So the question now is the rate. So we're going to use this formula. So our N for this will be 1 since it's mentioned what annual rate. The A, which is the future value, will be 7,500. While our present value, or the initial amount, or of the statue is 4,500. So substituting this to the formula, it will give us this one. So don't be surprised with this because we will be helped by the scientific calculator. So 7,500 divided by 4,500. There you go. And then you have to put that the exponent of 1/10 actually. If you notice, I did not put the multiplier 1 anymore because it will just yield same value. No. So 1 over 10 na lang, 1 divided by 10. And then group it again. There, you can have it, minus 1. It's already grouped. So the rate will be 0.0524, or in percent form, that is 5.24%. There. Some other problem will ask you to get the principal value or the initial value. So let's say you want to know the how much you should invest in an account, just like this word problem. Your goal is to end up with 100,000 in 5 years, and you can get an 8% interest rate on your savings, compounded semi-annually. How much do you need to save in your account to start up? You have a goal, so you need to know what will bring you to your goal, and that is to identify the principal amount to be invested. So we use this formula. So the principal amount is missing, but the future value you expect to have is 100,000. 8% interest, and then it is compounded semi-annually. That's why you divide it by 2. So inputting it in the calculator will give us this. .08 divided by 2, close parentheses, again, another close parenthesis for the sum, and then you put an exponential form. So I tried here negative first, pero mukhang ano tayo dyan. So I grouped the negative with 2 already. I multiply that, negative 1 to 2, giving me negative 2. So that's negative 2 times 5. Anyway, again, once again, you can have it raised to negative 10 directly because you can simplify that easily. Fine. So you'll have 67,566 peso and 42 centavo. So you have to invest this much now to be able to have 100,000 peso in 5 years in a bank offering 8% interest compounded semi-annually. So I hope that you've learned a lot on today's discussion about simple and compound interest. So keep posted on the next discussion for general mathematics and other courses that requires the same topic. So don't forget to subscribe so that you will be notified on the future videos. See ya.